Hi, welcome to 40 Years Ago This Month, a brief look at Marvel Comics dated March 1976. There's 24 stories here, and I'm just going to give a brief review of them, starting with my least favourite, the worst, and moving up to those 10 out of 10 issues. I'm starting with a story called 1984 from the magazine Captain America 195. This is the third part of the Mad Bomb storyline. Plods along, there are some interesting ideas, but the execution is mostly terrible. This is the third issue by writer-artist Jack Kirby in a run of 22 issues. I gave this one 2 out of 10, which is pretty much typical for the run from me. I did not like this run at all. I am not a fan of Jack Kirby, the writer, although some of his other titles I did warm to, but I did not enjoy his run on Captain America or Black Panther when it comes to that. So 2 out of 10 for that. It's the only 2 out of 10 out of the month. Moving up to the 4s. To Storm the Gates of Hell was a story in Deadly Hands of Kung Fu 22. This is an Iron Fist story. It opens with a tedious fight. It moves on to a tedious backstory. It's hard to care about any of this. This was the 4th part of a 6-part story by writer Chris Claremont and penciler Rudy Nebres. I gave that 4 out of 10. Where have all the powers gone? From Fantastic Four 168, which has Luke Cage in it. The first 2/3 is supposed to make us empathise with Ben, but it's laid on much too thick to work, and he comes off like a jerk. The final third is action driven, and it's marginally better, but it's too late to salvage a non-enjoyable issue. This is the 13th story by writer Roy Thomas, who did a run of 25 issues, and it's the 19th story by penciler Rich Buckler, who did a run of 21 issues. I gave it 4 out of 10. Another 4 out of 10. Cry Turnip from Howard the Duck issue 2. There are some off-the-wall ideas here, but for some reason it never quite gels. It seems more stupid than amusing. I gave that 4 out of 10. This is the second story credited to writer Steve Gerber, who had a run of 28 issues on the title, the vast majority of which I love, because I am a fan of Steve Gerber. It's also the second and final story credited to penciler Frank Brunner. Moving on, Omega the Unknown from the magazine Omega the Unknown 1. A very frustrating read. It's enigmatic and it's mysterious, and the intention, I suppose, is to make the reader curious about what it all means. But when you don't actually like any of the characters, it's very hard to take a leap towards caring about them. This is the first issue by Steve Gerber in a run of 8 issues, and it's the first issue by penciler Jim Mooney in a run of 9 issues. I give this 4 out of 10. Although I am a fan of Steve Gerber as a writer, as I said, and I did like Howard the Duck as a run, Omega the Unknown did not work for me, and this first issue was kind of how I felt about the entire title. 4 out of 10. Moving on, and to comics that I enjoyed more. Much more. So those early ones are the ones that didn't impress me in March 1976's batch. Who is the White Tiger? From Deadly Hands of Kung Fu 22, and it's a White Tiger story. Now, it's not as strong as the previous issue, but the main character is likeable and interesting. His family drama holds the interest too. The B story merely tidies up the loose ends from the previous issue. The battle that closes out the chapter is disappointingly similar to what happened last time. A costume stranger shows up, picks a fight, that's it. I wonder, does this series have any other way to get the hero involved in stories? I gave that 6 out of 10, which is a good average number for me. It's the 4th White Tiger story by Bill Mantlo. The White Tiger series took over from the Sons of the Tiger series. It kind of seamlessly one melded into the other, and White Tiger took the place of Sons of the Tiger, although the various characters from Sons of the Tiger continued to make guest appearances or cameo appearances. So this was the 4th White Tiger story. It was written by Bill Mantlo, who did 12 stories for the White Tiger in this magazine. And then after the cancellation of the magazine, he continued to write White Tiger in the spectacular Spiderman. And it's the first of 2 stories by penciler Keith Giffen. And as I say, I give that 6 out of 10. Next comic. And Man-Thing makes 3 from The Incredible Hulk 197, which involves the Collector. This is an enjoyable read, which explains nothing. It's merely a setup for the next chapter. It's nice to see Man-Thing, a favourite of mine, even if he's only a pawn in another's schemes. I gave this 6 out of 10. This is the 19th story by writer Lynn Wein in a run of 43 issues on the Hulk, and it's the 4th story by penciler Sal Buscema in a run of 110 issues on The Incredible Hulk, not counting annuals or specials or anything else. I just didn't have time to count up those 110 issues of The Incredible Hulk. No wonder for so many people, including myself, he is the definitive Hulk artist. Next up, A Past Gone Mad from Marvel Team Up 43, which has Doctor Doom as well as Spider-Man. Not much happens here. It's really just one long battle. The participants are interesting, however, and I gave this 6 out of 10. This is the 6th story by writer Bill Mantlo in a run of 19 issues on the title, and it's the 12th story by penciler Sal Buscema in a run of 23 issues on the title, and as I said, 6 out of 10 from me for that one. Ghost Town in the magazine Marvel 2-in-1 14, which has the Thing, of course, and the Son of Satan, another favourite character of mine. Loved his series, solo series, or the early part of it. The first half of this is good fun. The second half gets needlessly complex and the story kind of fizzles out, but I still thought it was worth a 6 out of 10. This is the 3rd story from writer Bill Mantlo, who did a run of 15 issues on the title, and it's the 2nd and last issue by penciler Herb Trimpe. They Told Me a Myth I Wanted to Believe, which is in Jungle Action 20, and it's a Black Panther story, and it's the 2nd part of the clan storyline in that title. An absorbing and enjoyable issue, even though very little actually happens. I gave this 7 out of 10, better than average. As a rule, I loved the Black Panther run in Jungle Action. This particular issue is the 15th story by writer Don McGregor, who had a run of 18 issues on the title, and it's the 13th story by penciler Billy Graham, who had a run of 13 issues. As I say, 7 out of 10 for that. That run, particularly the storyline just before that in Jungle Action, the Black Panther storyline, was brilliant. Really, really, really good, really rewarding. Sometimes a difficult read, but a rewarding read. As 7 out of 10, we've moved up to the 7 out of 10s. Night of the Walking Bomb is next, and that appeared in Iron Man 84. It's an enjoyable slugfest, which, with one of those I must battle my friend twists and a ticking bomb urgency. 7 out of 10 for me. Enjoyed this. It's the 3rd story by writer Lynn Wein, who did a run of only 4 issues, and it's the 3rd story by penciler Herb Trimpe, who also did only 4 issues on the title. Short run from the two of them. A Final Battle Waged, which is from The Tomb of Dracula 42. A story-heavy issue that keeps the annoying new characters to the background and is therefore very enjoyable. Blade has one scene here that is particularly badass. A 7 out of 10 from me for this issue. It's the 36th story by writer Marv Wolfman, who did a run of 64 issues on the series, on the main series, not including giant sizes or anything else. I didn't count those up. And it's the 42nd story by the great penciler Gene Colan, who did a run of 70 issues on the title, again not including peripherals. I didn't count those up. So these two guys were well into their run at this stage, just had passed the halfway stage on a pretty consistently good series that got better as it went on. This was issue 42, 7 out of 10 from me. The End, which is from Werewolf by Night 37. It brings the story arc to a satisfying conclusion. It opens with our hero face to face against a foe that seems unbeatable, but with the help of some characters met early earlier in the storyline, a victory is achieved. Expecting cancellation, Doug Munch wrote this as an ending to the entire series, so it features some old foes popping up in spectral form, and it concludes with an epilogue which shows the regular cast settling back into their sort of normal lives. I gave this 7 out of 10. Thoroughly enjoyed this issue, and this particular arc as well was very enjoyable. Werewolf by Night is a series I didn't like. I liked it more as it went on, I suppose is the best way to describe it, and at this stage I was enjoying it. This is the 18th story by writer Doug Munch, who did 24 issues of the title, and it's the 21st story by the great Don Perlin, a favourite of mine, the artist Don Perlin, who did 27 issues of the series. Murder at Malibu from the Champions issue 4, with the villain Dr. Edward Lansing. Action-packed, fairly just looking at a display here, something's flashing. Action-packed with a fairly interesting villain. It's good fun, and this got 7 out of 10 from me. It's the only issue written by Chris Claremont, and the second issue by penciler George Tuska, who would do 5 issues in total, mostly near the start of the run. Moving up from the 7s to the 8s. Watch out for Bullseye, he never misses. This is from Daredevil 131, and it's the first appearance of Bullseye. Interesting bad guy. The ongoing story arc starts to get much more compelling here. 8 out of 10 from me for this issue. The 8th story by writer Marv Wolfman in a run of 19 issues, and the 20th story by penciler Bob Brown in a run of 27 issues. And all the King's madmen couldn't put Deathlok back together again, or could they? Which is from the magazine Astonishing Tales 34, and it's Deathlok, a Deathlok story. The story arc moves forward in huge leaps here, and it seems as if we're building to a conclusion. I gave this 8 out of 10. In general, I loved the Deathlok run in Astonishing Tales. This particular one was the 8th story credited to Rich Buckler as a writer, from a total of 10, and it was the 4th story credited to Bill Mantlo as a writer from a total of 4, and it's the 9th story credited to Rich Buckler as a penciler, credited with a total of 11 in Astonishing Tales. Stepping up again to the 9 out of 10 comics, down to the last, say, 6 now at this stage. The 24-Hour Man, which appeared in the comic Amazing Adventures 35, and it's a Killraven Warrior of the Worlds, or War of the Worlds, whichever way you want to look at that series story. It's probably the best, most interesting standalone story this series has done. It's highly inventive and it's very unusual, and I gave it 9 out of 10. It's the 14th story by writer Don McGregor, who did 17, and it's the 8th story by penciler P. Craig Russell in a run of 11. Again, 9 out of 10. Killraven's a very good series, in common with Black Panther, obviously, Don McGregor's other series. It can sometimes be hard going. It's not an easy read, but it's a rewarding read. The Taking of the Avengers from Avengers 145. Strong first half to this two-parter, which is originally planned for giant-size Avengers 5. Plenty of action, and there's good character writing here. It's an unusual story for this series, as superheroics give way to constantly building tension and suspense. This two-parter is the only Avengers story credited to writer Tony Isabella, and this was one of only 8 stories by penciler Don Heck in the 1970s, who had done 32 issues in the 1960s. 9 out of 10 from me. I thoroughly enjoyed this Avengers 145. Time Out of Mind from Skull the Slayer 44. No, 4. There wasn't a issue 44. Lots of story, lots of action, and some genuine surprises in this. I presume the drastic changes to the series status quo will be undone at some point. Even if that happens, these are still some stark character-defining moments. And I gave that 9 out of 10 when I read it. I read the rest of the series, and yes, I think they were undone, if I think I know what I'm chatting about there. But even so, I remember what that's about. And again, it was really, really bold character-defining moments, tough decisions made by these characters. This was the only story in the run credited to writer Steve Englehart, a favourite of mine. And it's the first story credited to penciler Sal Buscema in a run of 5 issues. Skull the Slayer didn't last very long, but I enjoyed it when I read it, and it was wrapped up in Marvel 2-in-1. I enjoyed this series, and obviously enjoyed this one. I gave it 9 out of 10. Destroy the Stroy, screams the Destroyer, from the comic Captain Marvel 43, which has Drax the Destroyer in it. This is a fascinating slugfest. It works because both characters have interesting motivations, and the battle in space is cool. 9 out of 10 from me for this, and it's the 11th story by writer Steve Englehart in a run of 13 issues on the title, so coming to the end of his run. And it's the 7th story by penciler Al Milgrom in a run of 17 issues on the title. And last of the 9 out of 10 comics for me for this month, The Sandman always strikes twice, from the Amazing Spider-Man 154, which has the Sandman in it. Very satisfying for several reasons. There's lots of action, there's good motivations for the characters, and there's lots of continuity. I gave it 9 out of 10, thoroughly enjoyed this. 4th story for writer Lynn Wayne in a run of 30 issues on the title, and the first story by penciler Sal Buscema, who would do a total of 7 issues at different times on The Amazing Spider-Man. Down to the last, 3 comics for the month, and 10 out of 10 for all of these from me. Thoroughly enjoyed it. These were just the best of the best as far as I'm concerned. Webbed Hands, Warm Heart from the Defenders 33, which is the third part of the Headman story. Hilariously funny, brimming with ideas, utterly mad, and undoubtedly genius. 10 out of 10 from me. It's the 13th issue by writer Steve Gerber in a run of 21 issues on the Defenders, and it's the 32nd issue by penciler Sal Buscema, who did 40 issues of the Defenders. 10 out of 10, just flawless. Love this run. I love Steve Gerber anyway, on other titles like Man-Thing, and just 10 out of 10. What more can you say about that? I'm a big fan of the Defenders series anyway, and have been for many, many years. Cat from Master of Kung Fu 38. This is visually stunning, a very well told story, and it's great to see Chang-Chi working solo again. I enjoy the supporting cast to a degree, but this kid can easily carry the series on his own. 10 out of 10 from me. 19th story by the writer Doug Munch in a run of 102 issues of the main series, and it's the 12th story by penciler Paul Galassi in a run of 24 issues. Great run. That was a great run. Huge fan of Master of Kung Fu. It may be the single best consistently great Marvel comic of the 1970s. It's a comic I did not know until recent years, the last couple of years, but it consistently blows me away. There's a lot of 10 out of 10 issues when I'm reading Master of Kung Fu. This was issue 38. Final comic on this run through, March 1976, and it's The Temple at the End of Time, which is from Thor 245, and it's the conclusion of the Time Twister storyline. Epic stuff, just epic stuff. There's a satisfying ending to the story with action and tension between the various good guys, and it's got a clever ending, and I gave that 10 out of 10. Thoroughly enjoyed that. It's the 4th story by writer Len Wein in a run of 29 issues on the title, and it's the 58th story by John Buscema in a run of 80 issues, which started July 1970 and finished in July 1979. Fantastic run on the title from John Buscema, and again, we love these epic multi-issue arcs that they do on Thor, or did certainly in the 1970s, and this was a conclusion to a 10 out of 10 from me. So thank you very much. This was my look at comics 40 years ago this month, looking at Marvel cover dates. Marvel cover dated March 1976. Thanks very much.